What's up, everyone? Welcome back to yet another episode of E-Rose's College Football Show. If you like this content, make sure that you subscribe, drop a like on the video, and even comment down below. I love interacting with our viewers, and again, all the engagement helps us out tremendously. Okay, guys, today we're going to talk about the toughest and the weakest schedules of the 2026 college football season. We're just a few weeks away, so we're going to break it down. We're going to talk about mainly Power 4 schools, really schools that are either ranked in the top 25 or have a good chance at potentially making the playoff and have a history, a track record of being up in that conversation towards the end of the season. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the top 5 toughest schedules according to me. So one of the toughest schedules in no particular order is the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is an absolute grueling schedule. If you look at the schedule, obviously the opening game in a couple weeks versus Ball State, automatic W. But then week 2, again, we're playing at Texas, one of the most talented, highly rated college football teams of the season. That's going to be a very, very crazy game. I think it's a coin toss. It could go either way. Then you see a couple more automatic W's versus Kent State versus Illinois. That's a W. Now, at Iowa, October 3rd, that's not an automatic W. That is a very, very tough place to play. And I have witnessed Ohio State go in there, be a top-ranked team, and it not go our way. So I do think we'll beat Iowa. I think in the next game, we got Maryland. We'll beat them. And then another very tough road game at Indiana. Again, they beat us in the Big Ten Championship this past year. They got Josh Hoover. We'll see how Indiana does. Again, this is all preseason, all predictions, but I do think Ohio State will beat Indiana in the rematch. Then we have a bye week, and then another tough road trip at USC, at the Coliseum. Not an easy place to play. I do think we'll beat USC. Now, the one game I think we will probably win, but maybe even potentially lose, is versus Oregon. That's the very next game after USC. It's a home game, thank God, versus Oregon on November the 7th. And then we face Northwestern, Nebraska, the team up north. I think we'll win all of those. The 2 games that are in question are Oregon and Texas. Those are the 2 toughest games. I got the Buckeyes. I don't think it's possible to go undefeated, really, with this schedule. So I'm gonna give us 11-1. I think we might lose to Texas and or Oregon. All right, coming up next is the Texas Longhorns. Again, Ohio State is playing Texas, so you've seen it on the schedule. They play Texas State in week 1. They play Ohio State week 2. That's going to be a crazy game. Thankfully, they're home for that. It's going to be a really tough game. Then they play UTSA, automatic W. And then they play Tennessee, which is going to be a really tough game because that's at Tennessee. So that's not going to be an easy environment to go through. I do think Texas will win that. I think Arch is going to be a lot better this season. I think he locked in towards the end of last season. I think he's going to be very well off. And then after the Tennessee game, they have a bye week, and then they go versus Oklahoma in the Red River Shootout. This game is always nuts. It's always bananas. It's going to be crazy. I do think they will beat Oklahoma this year. I just don't know about Oklahoma's offense. We'll talk about them more in a moment. Oklahoma, then Florida. They lost to Florida last year. I think they'll beat them this year. Versus Ole Miss. They got Kewan Lacey. They got Trinidad Chambliss. It's going to be a very tough game. Very tough game for the Longhorns. I do think they will beat Ole Miss in this game. And then they play Mississippi State and at Missouri. I think they'll win both of those. And then this one, I've really been teetering kind of back and forth, is at LSU. Lane Kiffin, new coach, LSU, probably honestly the toughest stadium to play at in the country, especially if it's a night game in Death Valley. So we'll see. I do think Texas might lose this game. I think they'll probably lose to Ohio State, lose to LSU. Then I think they'll beat Arkansas, beat Texas A&M, and then probably end up going 10-2, get a nice shot at the playoff. But we'll see. Okay, next, and the toughest schedules is USC, the USC Trojans. So on August 29th, they're playing San Jose State. That's a dub. September 4th, they're playing Fresno. That's a dub. Playing the Raging Cajuns. Game 3, that's a dub. Rutgers Game 4, I believe that's a dub. And here's where it starts to get really tough. So they are playing versus Oregon on the 26th of September. I do think they will probably lose this game. I think Jordan Mailata and the USC offense is going to be slightly reinvented. I think they're going to be very good this year. I just don't know. Oregon is such a great team, great defensive line, great offense. I just don't see them competing. Another like sneaky, really, really, really tough game is going to be versus Washington. Going to be a very tough game. I do think they'll pull this out. They'll win this. And then after that, they play Penn State in the very next week. Penn State's very much an unknown this year. New head coach, tons and tons of new players. We'll see. I think USC beats Penn State. I think they beat Wisconsin in the next game. Then they play the Buckeyes. Of course, it's a home game, so Ohio State is traveling across the country to LA to play. I do think Ohio State's just too much for USC to handle. And so I think Ohio State will win that. And then they have a bye week. And then they play Indiana, the defending national champs, Josh Hoover, this team. I think Indiana is going to win this game. Again, this is just a really, really tough schedule, especially with Washington and Penn State on there among these powerhouses. I think they'll beat Maryland. They'll beat UCLA more than likely. So I have USC finishing 9-3, being right on the outside of the playoff. I don't think they'll quite make the playoff this year just because they have so many tough games on their schedule. All right, next up is the team up north, Michigan. Michigan opens versus Western Michigan. That's going to be a win. And then their second game is really tough, just kind of like Ohio State and Texas playing versus Oklahoma on September the 12th. This is going to be a really tough game for them. They played this game last year. They lost this game. They got smoked. I mean, I guess they only lost by 11, but they got dominated on the field. I do think Oklahoma will beat Michigan in this game. So I have Michigan losing their second game. I think they'll win versus UTEP. It's going to maybe a coin toss versus Iowa. I think they might beat Iowa. I think they'll beat Minnesota. I think probably they'll beat Penn State. And then I think, actually, you know what? No, they're going to lose to Penn State. They're going to lose to Penn State. It's a big game. So that's 2 losses. I think versus Indiana, definitely they're going to lose. We're going to see Kyle Whittingham and this staff and this team, what they've put together over the offseason. We're going to see if Bryce Underwood can actually play under pressure. I'm not convinced after last year and his performances and just how unserious he treated a lot of the bigger games. So at Rutgers, I think they'll win that versus Michigan State. They pretty much always beat Michigan State as of late. At Oregon, I think they'll lose that one. Versus UCLA, I think they'll win. At Ohio State, come on, OH, baby. I think they're definitely going to lose the game as well. So that's 5 losses. Very, very, very tough schedule for Michigan. I think they're going to go 7-5 this year and probably go to the Cheez-It Bowl again. All right, and our last game that's going to be on the toughest schedules is Oklahoma. They open the season versus UTEP. They're going to win that game. Second game, we just talked about it, versus Michigan. It is away. It's on the road, so that's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough place to play at the Big House. I do think they'll still win that. They'll beat New Mexico, Game 3. They're at Georgia, Game 4. This is why they're one of the toughest schedules. I do not think they have enough firepower offensively to compete and defeat Georgia. I think they'll lose to Georgia versus the Longhorns, and they have a bye week, and then they face the Longhorns on October 10th. I think they will lose that game. Texas is just, again, they got Cam Coleman, Arch Manning, one of the best rosters in college football. It's going to be very tough. It's a rivalry, but it's going to be very tough. So I think they'll lose that. I think they'll beat Kentucky. I think they will beat Mississippi State. They'll beat South Carolina. They'll beat Florida. But I do think they will probably, out of the next 2 games, Ole Miss and Texas A&M, towards mid to late November. They always say November is either for contenders or pretenders. I don't know, man. I definitely don't see them winning both these games. Maybe one of them, if they're lucky. Ole Miss is going to be tough. Texas A&M is going to be tough with Marcel Reed returning. I'm just going to go ahead and say they lose to Ole Miss, beat Texas A&M. I'm going to split it 1-1. and then win versus Missouri. So that's 9-3 for the Oklahoma Sooners. All right, we're going to shift to the easiest schedules really in the Power Four, and really just teams that we think have a chance at being in the top 25, potentially making a run for the playoff as well. We're going to start off with Penn State Nittany Lions. Literally the softest, easiest schedule probably in the country. If we're saying numbers and who's number one on the easiest, weakest schedule, it's got to be Penn State. They play Marshall September 5th. They play Temple in the next game, play Buffalo. I mean, just cupcake non-conference schedule. Then they jump into the conference play. They play Wisconsin, at Northwestern, USC, which I think USC will be a toss-up because we don't know a lot about Penn State right now. Of course, they have Rocco Beck, who transferred from Iowa State, Matt Campbell, their new head coach from Iowa State. Tons of players from Iowa State shifting over, but I don't know, in my personal opinion, I don't know if that's the best thing because Iowa State is not at the level of Penn State. However, I think they're going to lose, probably going to lose versus USC because that is the one, middle tier game they do have. At Michigan, again, that is also going to be slightly tough. It will be a very good game. I'd love to watch this one on TV. I think they might lose this game. I think they'll lose back-to-back. Then I think they're going to get their bye week after this game, jump straight into playing Purdue on October 31st. They'll beat Purdue at Washington. Very tough place to play. I think they're still going to win that. And the last three games, Minnesota, Rutgers, Maryland, I think they're going to win all three of those. So I do think Penn State finishes the year. Again, we have no clue. They could go 0-12 for all that we know right now. So hopefully I don't eat my words, but I think they're going to go probably 10-2, maybe 9-3. If they go 10-2, obviously they'll probably have a pretty good shot at making the playoff. 9-3 with this schedule, there's not a chance. So it's really all going to ride on that one game, whether they lose 2 or 3 games this season. And I guess we'll see how good they actually are. Next on the easiest schedules is Notre Dame. Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Man, if this isn't a just automatic pat on the back, here you go, welcome to the college football playoff. What seed do you want? I don't know what is. This is extremely easy. The over-under win total is 11.5. So you know what Vegas thinks. Vegas thinks they're going to win 11, maybe 12 games and go undefeated, and as well do I. I think they'll beat Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, Purdue, North Carolina, Stanford, get off to a 6-0 start. Now, the first test is at BYU. That is going to be an interesting game. I wouldn't say a super tough game. If you're comparing the programs, there's not that much of a comparison. Notre Dame is just historically at the top, always has been, and has kind of drifted their way back up there the last few years. So I think they'll beat BYU on the road. They'll beat Navy. And then the one game of the season that nobody really knows who's going to win. Obviously, they played last season. It was a barn burner. They did lose in the first game of the season versus Miami last year. You know what? I'm going to go for it. I think they're going to beat Miami this year. I think they're going to get their get back. They're going to get their revenge. I think Miami's going to be really good as well. But the one tough game of the season, I think they're going to win it. They're going to beat Boston College, SMU. Might be a sneaky good game. I think they'll beat SMU, though. At Syracuse, I think they'll win. So I probably, honestly, Notre Dame could very well, with this easy and soft of a schedule, could be entering the college football playoff, the number 1 or 2 seed. And remember, they're an independent team. They're not in a conference. They just play teams from a bunch of different conferences. So they could go as a number 1 seed and not have to play in a conference championship game to have potential injuries, fatigue. I mean, they might get a number 1 seed in the college football playoff. I hope they don't, but they very well could go 12-0. I think they will go 12-0 and potentially get a number 1 seed or probably number 2. So they'll probably get a bye if that ends up happening. All right, next is Iowa. Iowa has a very easy schedule, and kind of like Penn State, I could very easily see them making their way into the playoff this year, which we know typically they're not in the conversation. Typically they have very good defense, but their offense is so-so, kind of in the middle. Not very good, shall we say. But I don't know. I think they got a real shot. I think they got a real shot this year to be on, at least on the cusp, on the bubble of being in the playoff. They're definitely going to, at the very least, be in the conversation. So Iowa's schedule, they're opening versus Northern Illinois. I think they'll win that. Iowa State, they lost a lot of players. So I think they'll beat Iowa State. UNI, no clue who that is. Obviously, they're like a FCS team or somebody who's definitely not in the Power 5. So they'll beat them. And then the first test at Michigan. It's going to be a very good game, a very interesting game. I do think it's going to be a slugfest. I think they'll beat Michigan, and they'll win that tough game. They'll have a lot to be proud of. And then they're at home the next week versus the Buckeyes. Again, another tough game I just talked about a few moments ago. I think the Buckeyes are going to win this. I think they're just going to overpower Iowa as they typically do. And then, a really tough game coming up for a not that tough schedule. Back-to-back weeks, no bye week in between. October 3rd, Ohio State. October 10th, the very next week, on the road at Washington, which we don't know what Washington's going to be this year. I mean, they were pretty good last year, 9-4 record overall. Damon Williams is returning. Obviously, it's a little bit awkward because he tried to walk out the door, and they said, oh, no, you don't. So we'll see what Washington is, but they're going to be playing at Washington. That place is a tough place to play. So I think they'll drop games back-to-back. They'll lose versus Ohio State, lose at Washington, and I think really for the rest of the season, it's going to be a cakewalk. I think they'll beat Minnesota. Maybe not a cakewalk, but if this is Ohio State playing, this will be a cakewalk. Let me say it like that. I think they'll beat Minnesota, beat Wisconsin, beat Northwestern, beat Purdue, beat Illinois, beat Nebraska, although that could be a very, very, very fun game to watch. Could be a nail-biter. I think Iowa's going to end the season 10-2, potentially. But come on, it's Iowa. I can't really say 10-2, right? I'm gonna go ahead and pencil in a loss. I think they will lose, let's say, to Nebraska in the last game. I think Nebraska's going to get them. I don't know what Nebraska will be this year. I think they're going to go 9-3 and not quite make it, even with a very, very easy schedule for the Hawkeyes. So I don't think they'll make the playoff. All right, next is the Miami Hurricanes. They also, like Notre Dame, have a very easy schedule this year. They open the season at Stanford on September 4th. They're going to win that. FAMU on September 10th, that's a win. Wake Forest on the 18th, that's a win. Central Michigan, Game 4, that's a win. At Clemson, I don't think Clemson's going to be as good as they used to be this year. So that's a win. Florida State, that's a win. Pittsburgh, win. North Carolina, win. And then their first loss of the season, as I talked about a moment ago, is going to be versus Notre Dame. But I do think it's going to be a one-score game. Could go either way. But I think they'll lose. And then they'll beat Duke, beat Virginia Tech, beat Boston College. Literally the only team with a pulse on their schedule is Notre Dame. So I got Miami going 11-1, getting to the playoff because they have an extremely easy schedule. I think Darian Mensah is going to be pretty good this year. Malachi Toney returning. I hear they're reloading on the defensive line, so even after losing Ruben Bain and some of those other guys, I think they're going to reload, and I think they're going to be fine on the defensive line. All right, and our last team, the easiest schedule. Maybe one of the easiest of them all outside of Penn State. It's actually might give them a run for their money. A team that was in the playoff last year that got to the quarterfinals is the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Obviously, been a lot of chatter about them this offseason. They lost their quarterback, Brendan Sorsby. He transfers from Cincinnati, and they play Cincinnati on the schedule, which is a little crazy. So I don't know. The quarterback's a question mark this year. Obviously, if they had Sorsby, I think they'd have a lot better chance at just going undefeated, winning the Big 12. But we'll see. Honestly, there might be a few games where we just don't know. Like, I think without a quarterback, they can beat most of these teams on their schedule, truthfully. I think their first game, Abilene Christian, automatic win. Oregon State, terrible. They'll win. And then game 3 is really the only test of the year, in my opinion, is versus Houston. Houston is going to be pretty good this year. So I do think without a consistent quarterback, and who knows, maybe somebody on Texas Tech's roster will step up and just go bananas, and I'll eat my words, but I don't know. I don't know right now. I think they're going to lose to Houston. I think they're going to slip up early in the season. But then the whole rest of the season, man, absolute cakewalk of a schedule. Sam Houston, that's a win. Colorado, win. Arizona State, wins. Cincinnati, win. Arizona, win. West Virginia, win. Oklahoma State, Baylor, TCU. They're beating all these people. So I think they're going to go 11-1. I do think they'll go into the playoff. Again, I don't think they'll make it very far without a quarterback and with really not being battle tested. They'll probably make it into the Big 12 championship as well. And, they got to win that game, I'm sure, to get into the CFP. But hey, there you have it, guys. The toughest and the weakest schedules of the 2026 college football season. If I left anybody out, let me know in the comments. I love hearing your guys' interactions. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're so close to football, guys. Just hang on. We're going to have some awesome games coming up here in just a few weeks. All right, guys, as we wrap up the video, we are going to do our giveaway. We're going to announce our giveaway winner for the Riley Leonard autographed Notre Dame football card. I'm going to be sending this to one of you lucky people. So without further ado, we have the wheel that we're going to spin, so there's no cheating. We're going to spin it live on camera to see who our winner is today. So without further ado, let's select a winner. And here we go. Our winner is Drayton Berry. Drayton Berry, you have won this card. I'll make sure I get that to you, my friend. Congratulations. Stay tuned for more giveaways like this, guys, in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing day, and God bless.